ladies and gentlemen, all the way from New York, Alexis Ohanian.
Also brought a backup microphone. Gifts of the crew. All right.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So here's how we're going to run this session. I've put together a few slides. The slides will be the core of our discussion. But then we would like to have some engagement. We want to make this as engaging as possible. And I'm sure you have a man with a lot of stories. Now, when we put the video together, which I'm sorry you missed, but I'm going to send you a copy. The team came to me half an hour, after giving them the direction, and they said, boss, 31 years old, and he's done a lot. We don't know what to include in there. So it's, we have an achiever here on the stage today. And I'm sure we're going to learn a lot from him. Now, let's start with news. And I know this session is about news. News in your own definition, or let's say the Reddit definition. How would you define news?
Well, that's changed a lot, right? When we started Reddit in 2005, our slogan was what's new online. And we chose that deliberately because we knew even in 2005, what was news was no longer going to be what was reported by news organizations. For the entire 20th century and earlier, what was news was defined by very specific organizations that were responsible for journalism, for creating news. In the United States, for decades, there were only like 3 major news networks that people tuned into every night for their evening news. In 2005, it was already clear that what was news was changing. It didn't have to be a report from a journalist at Al Jazeera or BBC. It could have just been some person taking a photo wanting to tell a story. And that was something we got right. We knew that much. What we did not expect, and I think what surprised, I think if they're being honest, even the founders of Facebook and Twitter, is that the age of social media would come so quickly and generate so much reporting now. And that's the thing, right? Reporting is not the same as journalism, and I think that's what I was getting at with this quote, if I remember. Right, any one of us with a smartphone now, every one of you with an internet connection can report on something. 25 years ago, you would have needed, what, a van with a satellite dish and a crew and people with cameras, and it was expensive. Not everyone could report the news back then. Reporting news now has become trivial. We've seen how much that's affected the world. But that means that now there's a lot of noise. And the role of journalism, good journalism, is even more important in an age when everyone is a reporter, because now we need someone to synthesize all that and help us put it in context and help us understand. It is by no means a perfect system, but it's the one we're in now. And I think we're better off for it, but we're still trying to solve the idea of how do we search out good news of good journalism in an age where everyone can report on news.
Very good. Now we do understand social media, digital media is getting smarter day after day. Now, do you think we can, or we are at a stage of reducing noise? This is through consolidation, segmentation, simplifying what we receive? Is this a solution? Are we going through this now?
We're definitely going through it. I wish I had a crystal ball and I could tell you what the answer is. I think we're certainly striving for something with Reddit, right? We want to build this platform for communities to come and talk about what's important to them. And I think technology, the actual software, is going to keep getting better, right? Humans right now are doing a much better job at scale than humans in a room, right? You could put 1,000 of the hardest working, smartest editors in a room, and they still won't be able to sort through all of the information on the internet as quickly as hundreds of millions of people using these social media platforms like Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, others. That said, software is going to keep getting better. And I think what the world will look like when it comes to parsing through all that noise is going to be something like a cyborg, right? Part human, part machine. There will still be this role for humans to do the journalism, but they're going to be assisted by lots of software. And they're going to be able to make better decisions in the same way that people look at financial markets today and use more, the smart ones are using more and more software to sift through all of that data, but it's still there's still a guiding touch of humans in the process. So I think it's going to be cyborgs, and I think the area where platforms like Reddit will strive and succeed is around the communities.
Sure.
Because the reason, there's a great community on Reddit, r/Arabs. And it's a community of people who come to not only talk about, they could be whatever, it could be the news of the day, it could be weather, it could be sport, whatever they want. What's bringing them back is not just the fact that it has new and interesting content, but because they've actually built a community online with people who they've never met, in most cases, in real life, but with whom they feel a really strong connection. And that's something that I think, if you aren't already familiar with it, it's happening, and it's only getting stronger with this new generation that's coming up. Right? The fact that I can meet someone on the internet, just have a conversation with them, who's just as interested in my favorite football team, and who just fascinates me with his or her, I don't know, knowledge of the sport, I can make that connection now. Like, that was the sort of promise of the World Wide Web, and it's actually starting to come to fruition.
Okay, so are you saying we are going through technological advancement, but are we also witnessing maturity, when it comes to end users?
Not
Is it
as
the same
quickly.
maturity? Are we aligned or we are not?
In terms of the maturity?
Yeah.
Not as quickly as I think we would all like. There's this interesting scenario now where we are basically, the world, I know Tom Friedman has that book that was like, the world is flat, but it's not. Obviously, the world is not flat. Come on, Tom. But the World Wide Web is. The internet is. And what that allows is ideas to collide with each other in real time, instantly. And that's something that has always defined us as humans, right? Whether we're having a good discussion about who's a better football player, or whether we're having a discussion about politics, or having a discussion about anything, ideas are something that humans, like, when you have a good idea and I hear it, it's like a human copy machine, and it spreads. Whether it was learning how to make a great cup of tea, or whether it's an important political idea, like whatever it is, the internet now allows those things to happen in real time. That also allows for so many of these ideas to start colliding off of each other. And I think we as people are still catching up to that rapid change. Because, right, it's kind of mind-blowing that there are people alive today, mostly children, teenagers, who have only known a connected world, where they've only known a world where if they want to go online and debate who the best soccer player in the world is, they can and experience that. And then there are others who have grown up in a world where maybe when they were growing up, the only people they communicated with were the people in their immediate town, right? And we're all living right now through this amazing change.
Sure.
And navigating that is going to be a challenge because, we don't have a blueprint. There's no toolkit for this because we're all writing it together.
10 years ago, a single newspaper would be able to accommodate, let's say, the world news. So everything can basically be read in a newspaper you start your morning with, and then you can have, whatever you consume for the rest of the day. That behavior is changing. What's happening to news? Are we witnessing more news being produced because people, as you said, being now producers? Do we need to find other solutions? What is, in your opinion, what's happening? So where would someone basically go to consume whatever we used to consume, same way like 10 years back?
Yeah, this is a tricky one, right? There's the slogan for the New York Times was, I think it still is, all the news that was fit to print. And it was literally the news that was fit to print, right? Because there was only a certain amount of space on the page for stuff to be printed.
That's right, yeah.
That constraint obviously does not exist on the internet. And I think as a business model, so many traditional news organizations all over the world are struggling with this. I think there are new challenges now because that world has been left behind. There's obviously still a lot of printed news that gets printed out, but 50 years from now, that's not going to be the default medium. What is most important and interesting to me now is that we're seeing new voices emerge.
Sure.
Right? Like, it's kind of mind-blowing to me that for most of the 20th century, the news of the day, right, the front page that dominated the world, or the news feed that kind of was the most sort of sought after, pursued, tended to be Western, right? And that seems preposterous in a world that is much bigger than that, like sort of narrow worldview. And so what's exciting to me is that the internet provides for these new voices to grow online, unfettered. And it means that this sort of new front page isn't owned by just the New York Times or just the BBC, right, or just CNN. It's owned by whomever can capture the attention of as many people as they can capture. And to put it in perspective, I mean, 10 years ago, two college kids, me and my buddy Steve, who had no business starting a news website or a social media website, started something with a couple computers. And today, Reddit is the 10th largest site in the United States. And the next biggest news website is CNN at like 26. So how did two kids with computers end up growing something in 10 years that's now more influential than the New York Times or CNN in the US? Technology. It's not anything we did, it's the power of the technology. And that's a glimpse of the potential, right? Because we're still talking about a portion of the world, not all of it.
Bringing these communities on board wasn't the real challenge, but the challenge was how you can make them interact with each other, live within that platform on a daily basis. How did you guys make that possible?
I'm fond of explaining, when I'm explaining Reddit to nerds, I always say, like, what Twitter is to people, to individuals, Reddit is to communities. And we started with just one Reddit community.
And so how many communities you have right now?
Yes. So now we have over 9,000 active. There are about half a billion total, but when we don't want to use that overinflated number. Like there are almost 10,000 active. Like every minute you can find new and interesting content. Our soccer, if you're interested, I know the American English won that one. But if you go to the soccer community, it's a massive, amazing community of fans. But your favorite team has one. Regions, like I said, our Arabs is an amazing community. But that's a perfect example. So we started with one community, and me and my buddy Steve submitted all the links for it. And then eventually we got enough traction that we started spinning up different communities around science and politics and programming, because we were nerds, video games, sports, and now we're at, like I said, 10,000. But the only thing we got right was making sure that we built tools that gave our users power, that gave our users the ability to take ownership of these communities. Because at the end of the day, we would only be able to grow so many communities. Like the Our Arabs community exists because we created tools that empowered users to say, we want to create this community. I couldn't possibly have created this community myself, but it happens. And the exciting thing when you do empower your users, even though you don't really know what to expect, is that more often than not, good things happen, amazing things happen. Right now, there is this dialects project happening on Our Arabs where, again, these are all volunteer moderators, are asking people to read samples. It's a paragraph of some classic Arabic poetry and record it and then upload it to the internet, SoundCloud, YouTube, whatever, and then share it with the community. And what this is doing is creating a database of all the very many different dialects of Arabic, all collected by volunteers all over the Arab-speaking world. And this is not Reddit Incorporated. This was not Alexis's idea. This was just some random person with a username who I don't know, who got together with a bunch of other random people in this community and said, hey, I have an idea. And enough people liked it that it happened. And you see this happening all over social media. And the secret just comes down to giving people the agency, giving people the feeling like this is worth their time. And I know, I even talked to my dad about this, and he's like, why do people spend hours every day contributing for internet points? And one of these days, I'm going to get him to understand, I hope. But the fact is, these people are doing it because they believe, they feel this sense of community. And it's the same sense of community we all might feel within our immediate family, within our immediate town, within our religious groups. That sense of community exists online between people who have never met in real life, who are just talking with usernames. And I know, like I said, I tell my dad this, and he's like, "You're crazy." But I tell my younger sisters this, and they're like, "Duh, idiot, I knew that," right? Like, it's happening, right? Whether we're sharing makeup tips, or whether we're debating sports, or whether we're just talking about the weather, like, people are feeling connections to other people they don't actually know thanks to the internet. And yes, a lot of it's happening on Reddit, but it's happening everywhere. And that community, that almost empathy that gets created is what's so exciting to me. Because I've had the privilege of traveling lots of places.
Sure.
And I did it even when I was a college kid, just, hostels all over the world. And the common thing that I found everywhere that I've gone is that there is this, like, it's so self-evident, but it really is this fact that we are all just people trying to figure out our way in the world, trying to hope for better lives for our families. Like that, there's so much commonality that gets so lost because so many people have it in their best interests to make us not want to feel that way about one another. Sure. And I think when the internet is at its best, and I know it's not like a magic wand that's going to solve all the world's problems, I know that, but when it is at its best, it creates this kind of empathy and understanding.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, like, why can't I have a great discussion with some other person who I don't know halfway across the world about my favorite sports team? Sure. Like, we're all just people talking about our favorite sports team.
Sure. And how do you moderate or filter, this big volume of content?
We can't. I mean, at the end of the day, we have some very basic rules.
Okay.
And then each one of the individual, sort of like imagining starting your own WordPress blog or what have you, each one of the individual communities
Sure.
sets their own sort of guidelines and etiquette.
Okay.
So it varies across all 9,000.
Sure. A very interesting topic here. And I think there is a major change taking place right now when it comes to press freedom. It used to be very much linked to people who owned mediums.
Oh, yes.
But now with almost every single person owning his own devices, being able to produce news. So what's happening? Are we redefining the press freedom? Should we be more responsible? Are there new guidelines should be set in place to basically have certain rules and controls?
Oh, this one is interesting. Okay, so as a student growing up in America, you get indoctrinated with all these things about like, and we got our independence from England, and freedom of the press was really important because we wanted to have that. And yet, to your slide's point, for most of America's history, as much as we prided ourselves on this notion of freedom of the press was largely controlled, right? There were only a few organizations that, like I said, not everyone could send a satellite crew and start up a TV network or start a newspaper.
Sure.
And it wasn't this totally free flow of information.
That's right.
Now that with all of our smartphones, the internet has really leveled the playing field a lot. It's still not totally level, but it's leveled it a lot. And I think this is part of, to the earlier discussion, this is part of the thing that we're still all figuring out. Because we still absolutely need journalists, absolutely, more than ever, to help us process and contextualize all this information. Like, frankly, it's just a matter of time, right? We don't have enough time to sit down and sift through and mine all this data. And I don't trust robots alone to help us figure that out. And I also don't trust the crowd alone to help us figure that out. And so it's given us tremendous power as individuals, but it also comes with a tremendous responsibility, which is trying to figure out the new mechanisms that are going to work.
Do we need like ethic code of practice to be applied? Do we need more of, for especially citizen journalism?
It's so, okay, yes, in theory. In practice, I don't know how it gets applied. And that is the challenge, because it is this gift and this curse that comes with everyone having the access.
That's right. Yeah.
And I don't know. Someone is going to figure this out and change the world. I haven't gotten an answer yet, because I think we're all still very much in the middle of it.
AP made an announcement. They are automating certain processes of their news. Mm-hmm. Is this the future? Will we have more robots replacing human being in terms of generating news? Do you think this is going to happen? Is it realistic? And to what extent?
Yes, I think it will happen for certain types of news.
Okay.
And I think it's already starting to happen on a smaller scale. AP that's a huge deal. But right, anything that can be done, anything that is repetitive, anything like that can oftentimes be done better by a robot than a person. And if that is the case, a robot's probably going to do it. The advantage we still have as humans is our creativity.
Absolutely.
Once robots can be that creative, they will probably take over. And then it's like Terminator, so that's bad. But, okay, the odds of that are, I'm told, pretty slim. But the point is, we'll let robots do the boring stuff, the repetitive stuff, the things where it's very clear that like this event happened here at this time. Like robots can handle that. They can also help us, like talking about those cyborgs earlier.
Sure.
The robots can sift through all of this new data we now have on a regular basis and help journalists discover trends. Sure. Before the journalists see it themselves.
That's right.
And smart journalists are actually doing this every day on Reddit. They're doing it on Twitter. Like they're looking for the trending stories because odds are if they bubble up on Reddit, they're going to bubble up everywhere else a couple hours later. But robots are going to keep helping journalists. They won't totally replace them.
Definitely is going to happen. This is something that's happening right now, and you'll see more of it happening in the future.
And that's the other challenge, okay? So there's a good book, 2 MIT professors wrote it. I'm going to butcher the name. I think it's The Second Robotic Age. I got a chance to interview these two, and they've done all the research to back all this stuff up. But it's a way that most of us, I think, in tech feel, which is this new world we need to prepare everyone for that is already upon us, is one where if your tasks are repetitive, if they are the things that robots can do better, they probably will. And whether that is things like data entry in the sort of white-collar journalist world or the kind of repetitive storytelling where that can be done better by robots, it will. Likewise, for the more blue-collar manual labor stuff, robots are going to keep replacing those jobs, and it's a matter of preparing people for the creative stuff. Now, interestingly enough, during this last recession, all of those working jobs that involved creativity continue to grow. Like I'm talking all the way down to like barbers and hairstylists. Like those jobs are not affected because robots, again, they're not taking those jobs unless they become self-aware. And then, trust me, when that robot becomes self-aware, it's not going to settle for just doing our hair. And then likewise, the kind of creative other work will continue to be the domain for humans. It's just a matter of making sure that we are ready for that. Part of that's education, actually a lot of that's education, and preparing our children for this new world because this is, it's going to be very, very different.
So what would happen to a reporter or a writer who's not creative?
Well, I know creative is such a, I don't mean,
are we at the risk of losing jobs here?
No. Here's the thing, creative is not the best word for it, right? Because everyone is creative, okay? No, like having a creative solution is just basically like, right, like robots don't do a good job when something unexpected happens, right? When something unexpected happens, things break, there's a bug, there's a problem. But where we thrive as people is when unexpected things happen, is we adapt. So that's all I mean by being creative.
So you're going to have troubleshooters then, just sitting around
monitoring the robots. No, but it's the kind of thing where the really repetitive tasks, like I said, like filling out the news article, that's really just rehashing specific events that are factual. Like robot can do that. But it takes a human to look at that story and say, here is the context of that, right? This is important. You need to know this news because of what happened 3 months ago, because of what happened 20 years ago, because of what's probably going to happen in another month, right? That robots, no, they're not. They're gonna be close, but they're still not going to get to our level anytime soon.
Okay, very good. Now, when it comes to news creation, production. Anything that has to do with news, I think 3 considerations should be taken into place: technology, stories, and people. Now, do we have to reform the way education is graduating thousands of journalists? Are we saying we should go more visual, which is becoming the real trend right now? Should we relook at this entire storytelling? What should happen now when you have to consider these 3 pillars when thinking news?
Oh boy, okay. So technology is going to be a big one. where traditional news organizations have thought of technology as some extra thing to have, right? It used to be, oh, we have an IT department, they make sure like they get the viruses off our computers. It was this ancillary extra thing.
Sure.
The news organizations of tomorrow will have to be technology companies first. They have to have engineers and product designers who understand building software first. Like, that's fundamental. They have to be technology companies, because if they're not, they're probably going to lose. Because this is all driven by technology. And this is a humbling thing, right? Like, at the end of the day, even deciding what headline you're going to use for a story is perfect example. You could come up with 50 great headlines, right? A brilliant editorial team, they come up with 50 great headlines, but we can actually tell you, the robots can tell you which ones convert better, right? They can actually run the A/B tests, get a big enough sample size, and say this headline outperformed all the others by 100 times, or maybe not that much, by 4x, and that's the one you're going to use, right? So you can use, against the cyborg idea, you can use software to optimize what the humans do.
Sure.
You don't want robots necessarily writing those headlines, because they're probably not going to do a very good job of it, but you can tell them to optimize them. Sure. What the stories, this is going to be interesting. I think this is something we're exploring with Reddit. We started a podcast about this, as you saw in a little thing a couple months ago called Upvoted, where we're letting our communities give us leads, right? They surface up an interesting story. It goes viral. Millions of people see it and are talking about it. And it's a lead for us to say, this is interesting. People want to know more. And then for us to go and interview them and talk to the people behind the story. I think this is another area where conventional wisdom is, oh no, like the editorial team knows best because they've been doing this forever. And really it's a dance between the editorial team and the community who you can now hear from in real time. And when you get it right, it's a partnership between the two. You're kind of following one another's leads when things start bubbling up. And with people, oh wow. So I think this is where there is still so much room for growth, because we still don't know everything we could know about what people want for news. We just don't. Like, okay, we get it. People can look at a cute cat photo and look at serious news right next to each other, right after one another. Got it. But what is relevant to people continues to change and evolve. So I don't know how popular Snapchat is in the region, but it's been fascinating to watch, because people will tune in to see a 8-second blurry video of their friend out on vacation, like you would never sit down and go to a movie theater and be like, I can't wait to watch this. But if it just pops up in your phone and it's this ephemeral video that's a glimpse into someone you care about's life, cool, this is news. And I know it's kind of crazy to believe it's on the same pedestal as the really important Al Jazeera article, but it is. And we don't yet know, like, there's going to be trust me, there'll be a new Snapchat in another 6 months.
Very true.
So that continues to evolve, and that's why that sort of platform agnosticism is really important, because we just have to get over the fact that, like, what we think is so important and so vital to people may not be, and we have to be willing to say, all right, what is going to capture people's attention?
Sure. But as a news provider, how easy it is to follow this formula and make it a success?
It's challenging. It is very challenging, because you're weighing all of those factors with a very real responsibility, which is informing the public. Right? I don't take that lightly. I may make jokes about it and all, but that's a really fundamental thing, right? And what is now happening is, in real time, we can get a lead on where that sentiment is. I'll give you the perfect example. Okay. Last year in the States, we had some really awful things happening across the country. One in particular involved a young man and being killed, and then there was a trial, or there wasn't a trial. Anyway, there was a decision in Ferguson that upset a lot of people because justice, they felt like, had not been done. And in this town, a bunch of folks got out and started protesting. And attention for this had been building up. It hadn't been getting national coverage in America, but it was getting lots of coverage across social media. People would start these hashtags on Twitter. People were talking about it on Reddit and Facebook. And enough momentum, there was enough public awareness that CNN decided, hey, you know what, let's send a van down there, let's cover it. And again, we're at this interesting point where that was a platform to get public sentiment, to make a story out of something that national media was not paying attention to.
Sure.
But here's the thing, in 5 years, it probably won't matter that CNN wasn't covering it, because there will be enough people, there will be enough eyes, there will be enough videos, there will be enough photos on other platforms that will make it newsworthy. And that is the dance that we're doing right now, because we have to compete for everyone's attention, right? CNN only had to compete with every other channel on your dish, right? That was a few hundred, I don't know, right?
Sure.
And now they have to compete with everything, including my cat photos on Instagram for your attention. And that's much, much harder. I have a cute cat. Like, it's really hard. She's adorable.
Okay. Now, this is basically, I think a little bit we spoke about it before, coming to the session. Now, I'm asking Alexis to use his imagination a bit. I told him what Dubai is about, and I took very few things that really makes this city and its spirit. A very visionary leader, a smart city, world-class infrastructure, global travel hub, international financial center, business-friendly, amazing environment. So if it's again 2005 and you have to rethink, your business, and here you are, again graduating from college, or still at college, and you want to come up with this world-class idea, and you have all these surroundings, what would you do?
Well, so this is a little unfair because I have the advantage of 10 years now, but mobile, like I said, mobile didn't exist in 2005, so we missed that one. It has to be mobile first. If you were going to build Reddit today from scratch right here, you'd absolutely build it on mobile, right? That's where we know people are consuming news and also going to share it. Having that is vital. I know everyone says it, but it's true. The other thing, and this is the opportunity, so there is still, across most of the Arab world, right, old school forums, web forums are still a dominant means for talking about news and interesting stuff, right? As a technologist, I'm like, oh my goodness, you guys all need to start using Reddit. But as an entrepreneur today, starting from scratch, I would say, okay, where do we go? Who are the most likely candidates to start using this platform? And then how do we reach out to those communities? Like literally, go online, talk to those communities and say, look for the most active and engaged ones. Maybe it's around a particular football team, or maybe it's around who knows what. And engage them and say, how can we build a tool? We want to build a mobile-first version of this forum that makes all of your dreams come true in terms of finding interesting stuff and sharing interesting stuff. How do we build it for you? And then also taking advantage of the fact that there is a nuanced understanding of every particular part of the region, right? It's not a homogeneous region at all. And so that nuanced understanding, because Reddit is ultimately a platform for communities, is vital, because you're gonna have to address every one of them in the right way to build the right kind of solid grounding. Because look, a subreddit, a forum like Reddit, any one of those doesn't work unless you have a critical mass of users who are submitting links and voting and commenting, and that takes a lot of work. And as much as we would love to have an even bigger presence here, we know it would take a lot of people actually who understand not just all the complexities of language and dialects, but also cultures, and can build real communities. Everyone talks about building community, but really, this is one of the things we got really right. And so far, we're still largely confined to the Anglophone world. And that's an area where I know we want to grow. But for someone here today, you're in the epicenter of it, and you could do amazing things.
So what would be your advice? Now, if you have to give 3 advices for startups here, what would that be?
So one of the big ones, and this is tricky, I know, is especially in a city like this, where I feel like life is so awesome, It's finding a way to surround yourself with people who are hungry and who really challenge you. Because like being an entrepreneur is not like, I know we glamorize it, and yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it is a lot of work, and it is very lonely. And the more that you can do, I think the thing that Y Combinator did very well was it took a bunch of people who were starting companies for the first time and built a kind of guild. I know it seems a little weird, but like we have this kind of guild where we were all in it together, and we were doing this weird thing, and our parents didn't really understand why we were doing it instead of getting real jobs. But we had each other to motivate, and it was a little competitive, but to motivate and connect with one another. So I would find that, I would connect with that, and then as just a matter of principle, like always be talking to your users. I think it's really easy, especially now that starting startups is cool, it's really easy to get caught up in the window dressing or like the playing house of being an entrepreneur, where it's like, I got my business cards, I go to events, like you're doing all the things, but you're not actually creating a company. And the way to know that you're creating something people want is by building it, putting it in front of them, and see if they use it, and getting that kind of feedback. And not enough, I see this, entrepreneurs all over the world get kind of hung up on the idea of being an entrepreneur and not actually doing it. And I bet probably the other thing too would be making sure that throughout all of this, you're focusing, I talked this briefly, but like you're making something people want. Like at the end of the day, it seems so self-evident, but so many founders get caught up with so much other stuff that they lose sight of this very basic principle, which is like the only way you're gonna be successful, especially if you're doing it on the internet, is if you're making something people want, because it is too competitive to not be. Trust me, like I said, lots of cat photos. No one's gonna pay attention. They've got something else. We all have a million things we'd rather be doing on our phone, so earn their attention.
Very good, and this leads us to the floor. And the floor is yours. Please do introduce yourself and where you come from.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello.
This is Nafaz, Queen Rania Foundation. I focus on online educational content. You mentioned the fact that most content in internet in Arabic is on these old sort of Web 1.0 forums. So I have a couple questions on it. I know we're trying to stick to one question, so you can answer however you want. My first question is, as an entrepreneur, would you advise that the person focuses on moving the users away from sort of these old web forums to sort of a new user experience, or try to keep them there but move them to a new medium like a mobile app, etc.? My second question is, in the region we struggle a lot with Arabic content. Only 3% of content online is Arabic content. One way, of course, is to get user-generated content, but that's not usually the best kind of content. So do we stick to that? Do we focus on producing sort of professionally produced content? And my last question is, would Y Combinator invest in a content-focused startup in the region?
Okay, all right. So I'll do them in reverse order. Sure, yes. YC will invest in any great company anywhere in the world. The biggest thing is an early stage company with traction, or with some sense of understanding something about where the world is headed that no one else does yet, and the demonstrated ability to execute on that vision. And so you should all apply if you're in any way interested to Y Combinator. You can see the application on the website. This is a challenge, right? Because much of English had this kind of first mover advantage on the internet, and has kind of become the lingua franca. I mean, there's a whole Chinese internet that's its own little weird ecosystem that's kind of closed. But I think that's all the more reason why trying to produce and striving to produce more Arabic content is so valuable. I think, and this is the advantage to having such an open field, is that as more and more people are coming online, you can, I think, do a lot more to set the bar and kind of set the standard. And so if you're producing that kind of amazing content in Arabic, it's going to make someone who's coming online and see where the bar is, right? They're going to see the bar set up here, as opposed to just like, here's a random photo of my cat, which is still great. I love the cat photos, but I would push more towards creating that high value, high quality Arabic content. And then the first one, so this is going to be the fun one. I I think you're going to be able, I think you're going to be able to move some of those people from the old school forums. I would look, at the end of the day, you'd want all of them to come over. This is certainly how I think with Reddit. But a lot of those users have been doing it for so long that it's going to take something pretty significant to switch them. They're not there for the technology, they're there for the community, right? The reason they're using that, you could show them better software, but they're going to say, I don't want to go to this place, none of my friends are there, essentially. So I would look towards the younger generation, folks who haven't been so married to that old style of like forum software, but are very used to socializing online, and still, I don't think, have a great solution for some kind of way to find out like what's new and interesting in the world about the stuff I care about. And we are open source, so, you know,
now, Alexis, how would you, before moving to the next question, how would you motivate them to produce better content?
Well, so I think a lot of it really comes from just where, like, if you're doing editorial work, if you're actually creating the content yourself, just by creating higher quality content, you are setting the bar higher. You're setting the example. You're being the change in the world that you want to see, you know? Like, by doing that alone and creating a space that starts up here, it's going to make someone who walks in there think, huh, okay, like this is a classy establishment. Like, I got to bring my A game. Maybe I'm going to wait to comment until I feel like I've got something important to say.
Okay.
It's not perfect by no means, but you just you start where you want to start the conversation.
Okay. Please.
شكرا. مساء الخير جميعا. اسمي عبد الله عبد الكريم من جريدة البيان. مرحبا فيك ألكس في دبي. وراح أسألك السؤال بالعربي لتحقيق غاية في فهم السؤال ومحتواه. في ظل وجود قيود وصعوبات الثقافات المتنوعة في العالم ليس ثقافة واحدة. كيف ممكن أصنع إعلام عالمي في ثقافة واحدة؟ يعني اللي في أمريكا كيف راح يقدر يتواصل مع اللي في الصين؟ ما عندك شعوب ما تتكلم إلا لهجاتها الداخلية.
Sure. So basically with cultural and language barriers, how can I still reach out to these people who live far away like the States and China?
Yeah, so, I wish I had a good answer for this. We still don't have a Rosetta Stone for the internet. The good news is there are more and more resources now that are being actively translated. I'm thinking of things like TED Talks, Khan Academy, more and more content that was originally in English, thanks to some amazing volunteers. These are people for free, are translating, putting subtitles on more and more pieces of content every day. So that's unfortunately it's not a great answer, but that's the best one at the moment.
الإجابة على هذا السؤال، هناك الكثير من المواد الإعلامية التي تترجم إلى لغات أخرى، وهناك متطوعين عبر الوسائل المختلفة يقومون بهذا الدور. قد لا تكون الإجابة المتكاملة التي تبحث عنها، ولكن هي جزء من الحل.
بالنسبة للجزء الأخير من سؤالي، طبعا الإعلام وسائل التقدم التكنولوجي والهواتف الذكية من سمات الشعوب الغنية. ماذا عن النصف الآخر من العالم، الشعوب الفقيرة؟ كيف ممكن أن نشملها في الإعلام الجديد؟
Okay. Smartphones and technological advancements is very much linked and related to rich countries, you know. So what we're doing when it comes to poor nations and countries, what would be a good solution to include them in?
Yeah, okay. So I'm Armenian, and this is something I've spent a good bit of time in my motherland. This is something we think about a lot, because mobile in particular is a huge leapfrog for the developing world. No longer do you need to essentially, to get someone on the internet, you just have to put up a tower and hand them a phone. That's simplifying it, but you're giving people access now thanks to the mobile internet that we never could have imagined at a much cheaper cost. And what's so cool about this is, we talked about this backstage, you know, Kenya is certainly a pretty well-developed country compared to most of sub-Saharan Africa, but still, right, this is a country that makes everything we're doing in the States on mobile look like amateur hour. because they're mobile first, because everyone is using M-Pesa to pay from their phone, this is stuff I wish I had in New York that they take for granted in Nairobi. We see innovation happening there that is leading the world. And so I see it as a huge opportunity. Yes, there are infrastructure things we can do to help the developing world, but in a lot of ways, the developing world is going to help itself by just leading the way on so many of these platforms, and they already are.
صحيح. طبعا سمعت مع التقدم التقني اللي حاصل أجهزة الموبايل تعتبر جزء من الحل، وهناك العديد من الدول الأفريقية التي متقدمة وتقدمها يضاهي تقدم الدول الغنية. فبالتأكيد التقدم التقني يساهم ويساعد في الوصول إلى هذه الدول، وبالتالي تشملها التقدم أو يشملها التقدم الحاصل في مختلف طبعا القطاعات.
And the one other thing I'll mention, because I always mention this, right? There was a time in the world when most of the world was illiterate, and getting access to books, that is knowledge, was very limited because you had to handwrite them, right? Before the printing press, you're only handwriting and sharing knowledge. That was how the world shared knowledge for a very long time. There was a moment, once we got a printing press and those started spreading, where people who had access to books and who could read could do anything, right? They had all the knowledge and all the power. Where we are at today, we've got the printing press, right? Everyone has the internet, not everyone, but more and more people have the internet connection. The new literacy for this world is programming, writing code. So that's the other part of it, the education component. If countries want to leapfrog, they've got more and more technology that needs to come in place, but if you can write the code, you can do anything.
I think we ran out of time. Finally, I would say on your behalf, allow me to thank a man who decided not to attend another conference that he speaks at on a yearly basis and be here with all of you. So please put your hands together for Alexis.
Thank you. Shukran.